My name is Joe Clifford. I'm a writer and a performer. I was born in England, but I've lived in Scotland for most of my life. When I started out writing, I wrote under the name John Clifford in the 80s. Made a good reputation for myself, which has continued since I've started living as a woman. I think the change was a very long and very painful process. Strangely enough, one of my earliest memories, way back when I was about 3 or 4, is of looking in the mirror and being puzzled by what I saw because I didn't quite recognize the boy I saw. When I was about 14 or 15, suddenly all kinds of experiences I'd had when I was young all began to make sense. And in a sense, it was a very wonderful experience. But in another, it was completely horrible and very terrifying. Because in those days, in the 60s, there was absolutely no understanding of these issues at all. I felt completely alone. I felt that the only thing I could do was try to live as a normal young man. And really, that's what I was doing all those years. I mean, I really tried so hard to argue myself out of it. I tried so hard to make sense of it. I tried hard to deal with it in so many ways, but none of them worked, because I don't think we do choose our gender. And I think for those of us who are born transgendered, we don't choose it. It just happens, and you have to try and deal with it. I think that it's hard for us in Scotland because there is a culture of the hard man, isn't there? The belief that there are only men and there are only women and there's nothing else in between. But also I think I'm not alone in this feeling. I mean, every man I've ever met and got to know has had doubts about whether they're a real man. And every woman I've known worries about being a real woman as well. We all have this distress and this anxiety. And the sad thing is that we can't talk about it because it's a taboo in our society. There's been 2 changes. There's obviously been a big change in me, in how I feel about myself, but there's also been a massive change in Scotland, a deep cultural change. And that's been reflected in the way legislation works. I remember when I first transitioned, I was in a job and it was made very clear to me that my job was not in danger because I was transitioning, which is a kind of basic human right, but that's a hugely significant step that many people in many countries don't have. The fact that if I get harassed or insulted in the street, I can go to the police and complain because that's a criminal offence. That makes a huge difference both to my peace of mind and to the way I am in the world. But everybody's attitudes has changed enormously. I mean, my daughters are so much more accepting of who I am than my own generation are. And I think things are really improving. Things are really getting better. There's a lot of work to do with young trans people who suffer the most horrendous bullying in schools. A lot more needs to be done to help eradicate that. And we need to get to a place where we're so much more open about what it is to be male and what it is to be female, and where boys can dress up as girls if they want to. Boys can play with girls' toys if they want to, without it being a huge, big deal. Because it isn't, actually. Just as if girls want to be a bit of tomboys, then that's fine as well. So we need to move further in that direction, and hopefully we'll evolve into a society which is much more open, much more accepting of everybody. And that has to do with ending racial intolerance and ending discrimination against people who suffer mental health problems, ending discrimination against people that have physical difficulties as well. And we'll all be so much happier when that day comes.